So let me ask this, Mark. What if the deer you're hunting walks out in front of your mom?
Oh,
You push her out of the way?
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by DeerGrow.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, we put a lot of food in the ground every year, seemingly more and more, and we have a ton of fun with it during the off season. There's some struggles that come with it too, though, right? Obviously, the back of my truck is evidence, right now. It's a couple weeks after I jackknifed, a 4,800-pound material spreader, as I was coming down, and it was too much weight for my truck there. But, all those struggles aside, DeerGrow really has been a staple for our food plotting process for several years now. Yes, we like to put lime and fertilizer on the plots, if we can, but there are some that it's just we're not able to get to them, or it's not feasible for us to get out of state with that stuff. And so DeerGrow is kind of the quick and easy, but still super effective option for us to be able to get the most out of those food plots that we can every year.
Yeah, and we're guilty of overanalyzing things just like everyone else, but that's the best part about DeerGrow is that it's going to create healthier soils, which in turn makes better food plots. And the fact is we can simply spray plot start or plot till when we put the seed in the ground, and then when that plant starts to grow, we hit it with boost. And we know that we walk away, when we come back, it's going to be a great looking food plot. For anybody that's looking to try DeerGrow, if you use the code HUNTR15, that's HUNTR15 at checkout for DeerGrow.com, you're going to save 15% on any of your DeerGrow products. It's a great way to get started on this and just see what the results are for yourself.
Better food plots, bigger deer.
And we're back. HUNTR Podcast.
Hey-o.
We debated. It's 155.
It is.
Episode 155.
There's no debate.
No debate.
That's what comes after 154.
If you're listening
so 154,
to this,
155.
It's November 6th, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And as always, without a reminder from Jeremy, wherever you're listening, we appreciate you guys. Sorry, didn't mean to yell there. If you want to just pause this real quick, give us a follow if you don't mind. We do read the comments too from time to time. So
follow, subscribe.
Yeah, give us a comment there, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you guys listening, and so thank you for your listenership.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, it's November 6th. It's a pretty important day in the whitetail world. Like, really important. Every day in the early November is important.
They're all important. I posted that thing the other day. I was like, on our Instagram story, where I just said it's October 24th only happens once a year. I said, I hope you're in the deer woods. We had a bunch of people write me, and they're like, what's October 4th? What's the significance of October 24th? I'm like, it's just another day in deer season.
It's significant. It gets more and more significant before we see like a diminishing return, though, at some point. But yeah, November 6th. So hopefully...
Every day's critical, though, man. As long as that deer is alive, the pressure's on.
I like that. That's a good saying.
Yeah.
As long as he's alive.
It's not even a saying. It's just something I said.
As long as he's
Shooter McGavin, I just said I saw it.
Yeah.
I just said I saw it.
Yeah. As long as he's alive.
Did you see that? He just had a hole in one and a par 4. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah,
Did you see that? Yeah, I just said I saw it.
Yeah.
What a good movie.
Shooter McGavin.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
So November 6th, if you're listening to this, perfect day to be in the woods. But we're filming this on October 26th.
I want to say that before this aired, I've killed...
Oh, boy. Calling shots?
I've killed... What day are we getting back?
Well, you've killed one.
What day are we getting back from Illinois?
The second.
I'm going to say I've killed at least one.
Wow.
Maybe 2.
Wow.
I'm looking at our chances in Illinois, dude. I mean, it's
prime weather.
Did you see I ordered a decoy? Did I tell you? I
did. Full move cotton.
I didn't take the liberty because I didn't get a response from you of putting it on our credit card.
Me?
Yeah, I texted you about it. And then I didn't get a response back from you, so I put it on my personal card.
DSD. I saw Mick having that in his vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, yeah, right.
That's what sold me. Between him and Jay
Yeah.
Gregory, I was like, yeah, I got to get one of those.
I don't know. I've used decoys before. Obviously, probably not great ones, and I've had mixed results.
Me too. Never a DSD, though.
Yeah. No, mixed results. So, anyways, we've got a cool guest today, Mark Drury.
Yeah.
Why not? It's November 6th.
He's a cool guy.
It's November 6th.
A cool guest.
Why not have Mark Drury on? And, we're all kind of, the reason we're filming this on October 26th, we had Don Higgins earlier, but we're all kind of waiting for this giant cold front that's about to smash us all in the face in the Midwest. It's the cold front of cold fronts.
In the face.
And it's happening at the end of October, beginning of November.
Yeah.
I would assume we could all go out on a limb and say a bunch of giant deer are going to die. Seems like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I hope so.
So we've got Mark on, talk about a little strategy here from kind of what's happened so far in the Midwest. Those guys have been in a massive drought. Obviously now getting rain. In fact, Mark just said it was pouring at his house. But kind of what October's held. Terry killed a giant.
Yep. Biggest ever, I think.
215, 214.
Something.
Like giant.
Yep.
What's kind of
if the number starts with 2, it's big.
It's big. What's October kind of looked like so far? And now here we are at the end of October with November in sight. Giant cold front. Like, what's the strategy? What's the move? So that's probably what we're going to talk about.
Okay. All right.
And just go straight into it. Right?
Let's go straight into it.
Let's bring Mark on.
Hi, guys.
Hey, buddy. We got you now. All right.
How we doing?
Well, we are waiting for this cold front, as I'm sure you are as well.
Maybe turn him down just a little bit there, Nick.
I am anxiously awaiting. We've been waiting for years, actually, to have these conditions over Halloween. I mean, it's been, I can't remember it to be this ideal. Honestly, I mean, it's perfect. You know, you can be too hot, you can be too cold as well. This one's pretty good.
I remember what it was. It was 2 years ago. We had a really good cold front on November 1st. That's when I killed that booner in Ohio.
Yeah.
Last year was the opposite. The same week was like 70 degrees.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, when I killed that deer, that we got a nice cold front that November 1st.
Yeah.
Did it last as long as this one's going to last?
No,
it didn't. No,
it was short because I think.
Long-winded cold.
Yeah, because I think I saw the 200 in Columbus on the 3rd, November 3rd.
Yep. That's when I killed. That was the 3rd.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it was short-lived.
3rd. Yes.
I mean, this is I mean, I don't know where I've seen it in our farm in Illinois. I don't know if it's today or 20. It was like 82 degrees, and then it's going to be like 42 on Monday.
It's if you can zoom out and look at the 10-day, you have like now through, well, I guess now Saturday it is going to drop, and then you have some precip coming afterward. But it's literally like low pressure, high 70s, 80s, followed by rain into like just a significant, like just a flat line cold front, and it's just like bluebirds, guys, bucks are going to die.
It's unreal. DeerCast has been so pessimistic for so long. We're getting complaints about app, and we're like, well,
yeah, this app's giving me bad readouts here. It says it sucks all the time to hunt.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that's what's actually happening in your neck of the woods, and it's going from yellow and red that's been there forever to green, and it's pegged out green, and it just stays there. You know, it's really, really ideal conditions. But I will say this: we've been so above average for so long. It won't surprise me if it takes them a day or two to go.
Yeah.
Okay. To figure it out. It won't surprise me if it shocks them a touch at the front end of this front. I hope they don't, but if by chance they don't move, it won't surprise me because we've been so warm so long. So this is the first, getting ready for winter. So it could shock them just a little bit. I think the bucks will still move because the date range is right. The moon's rising. This last week of October is going to be sick. I mean, really sick.
What are you seeing right now, Mark? I know Jared and I were talking earlier. Obviously, it's warm right now, but like, even nighttime activity. Our cameras have been really slow.
Yeah, but I don't want to go too like this is new. Like this, what we're in right now, just start for us out east here. This just started like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, 20.
We've had a good October. We've had some nice 3, 4 day cold fronts, and we've killed some good deer on them too. You know, it's just right now we're just getting this really hot spell before it kind of the bottom falls out.
I'll bet you since September the 15th when Missouri opened, I'll bet we've averaged 10 or 12 degrees above normal as an average.
Really?
And no rain. This rain event we're having right now, it's been 2 months since it rained like this. It's been really bad. The town that I live close to here in Osceola, they have like a half a year of water supply left. You know, where it comes out of the big reservoir is towards zero. And I mean, it's an epic drought here in the Midwest. EHD is prevalent again. It's rearing its ugly head. So, droughts are really tough. Floods are bad. Droughts are bad. I mean, it's hard to find that perfect weather for whitetail hunting. It sounds like you guys are having it a little better than we are, but it's it's been tough here in the Midwest.
Would you
Real
say
tough.
ours has been about the opposite? Like I'd say
Yeah.
our October temperature is probably 10 degrees cooler than it typically
almost.
is.
So like our opening weekend, we had a pretty significant front. We had some massive cold fronts at the beginning of October to where I was worried like they were happening too early. Like I'm like, man, we're gonna all
It's
of a
gonna level out in
sudden
November.
faucet's gonna turn off, temp's gonna go up, and we're gonna be into November and it's gonna be 70 degrees.
It's just been good though. It's been good here in October.
Yeah, but we also have had, and then what Mark, you said about the acorn crop. We've had a massive acorn crop out here as
Huge
well.
bumper year, yeah.
It seems to be universal throughout the whitetail range, and that's definitely, you add acorns to EHD to heat, and you can about predict what type of season I've had thus far. I mean, it's been very tough. I've got 2 or 3 targets that I'm looking for, and none have daylighted yet, based on cameras anyway. I'm sure they've daylighted, not from a trail cam perspective. And we look at 100 and I think it's 48 or 152 cell reports a day between myself, Wade, and Perry. And then we share all of our information. We talk every day, and it's just been dark and not much. And when you do get a cold front, they move quite well. And because of that, we've spread out, kind of divide and conquer. We typically would only run 1 or 2 crews, but every little cold front we've had, we've run 4 or 5 crews just to make sure that we optimize our odds to try and kill one. And that's worked so far. We've done pretty good for as bad as the weather's been, but only because we've spread out and really pushed it when the weather was here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you start looking at this front coming up, obviously we saw Terry killed a giant.
Brother Terry killed a giant.
Killed a giant. Yeah, Gar holds you probably.
Yeah, he's been gar-holing me since I was 12.
From day one.
just a mega giant, 216 inches. And, you know, he's 67 years old. He started hunting when he was 12, so he's waited 55 years for that moment. And he just 10-ringed that deer. I mean, just smoked him. And I was so happy for him. It brought me to tears when I found out he had killed him, because we had talked about the deer every day since he first got velvet pictures of him. I mean, it's been a lot of strategy sessions, and as usual, Terry's a wonderful planner of how to kill him, and he executed the plan. I think he saw him, like he encountered that deer like 5 or 6 times, and then finally got his shot and killed him. But it's going to be one epic story when it's done here in a few days within deer season 23. It's pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome.
What state was that?
Missouri.
It's Missouri, bud.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I think the most intriguing thing, this particular deer wasn't living too far off of a county road, you know, and the county road kind of splits Terry's farm in 2 different parcels. And as luck would have it, there was road construction on the blacktop just outside of his farm that started right ahead of the season. So the detour they took everyone through was running through Terry's farm.
Cow.
Oh,
So the
no.
traffic was insane. Just nonstop traffic all day going by, you know, and this deer would like cross the road and they'd see him. And like Terry was a nervous wreck, you know? So there was a lot of conversations, and he was just in disbelief that this happened this time. He's owned this farm for whatever, 20 years. And then all of a sudden, here you go, that they run the highway right through his place. So
Jeez.
pretty amazing story that he made him dead. I mean, I'm so happy for him. What a giant.
Yeah.
Buck time.
Oh, absolutely, man. Just an absolute stud. I mean, so I know Perry killed, what was it, Floppy? Is that?
Here we call Flop. He had a broken ear.
Yeah.
And then Perry killed a buck in Missouri. I was filming him down there. That's 8.5, a big giant white 8-point. And then Perry killed with a muzzleloader as well, a big 160 here in Iowa, all on cold fronts. And then Wade killed a deer in Missouri, a nice deer. And then Wade also missed a buck in Iowa, probably a mid-70s. So we're still trying to connect back up with him. So we've had some opportunities, but only on those really good weather fronts. And it was because we were all out there at the same time. So
do you feel like, you know, with it being so much warmer through the month of October and the acorns, I mean, are you seeing some of the bucks that you're expecting to see in 23?
No, I would say that from like summer inventory versus what I knew or what I assumed was left over from last year based on late season inventory, and then summer picks, I would say we're seeing 40 or 50% of what I thought I'd be seeing right now.
Wow.
So some of that I feel is a great deal of that could be EHD, and not necessarily that they're dead. They just may not be feeling well. We've had some visuals on some deer walk out into a pond, stand there for 30 minutes drinking, get up, walk back, go to bed, that type of stuff. So there's different types of EHD, and in my opinion, there's some illness out there where they're just not feeling well and they're not moving much at all. So
wow.
It's made for just pretty much the roughest October I can recall.
Do you think that could be having just a big social impact as well? Like, as deer are dying off left and right, do you think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how big of a motivator just the social pressures are for a deer to go to a certain area versus another. But if it is a big factor, seems like that would totally throw things off.
It's a great point, and you're thinking through the scenario that quickly. Like, there's areas where there's 3 and 4 year olds ruling the roost that would never have a chance to rule that particular spot, based on historic pictures. So absolutely, it's making a difference. 100%. Yeah, some of my best hunting holes don't have a mature deer anywhere close and haven't for weeks. So it's kind of weird. And even like the deer that I'm targeting, I'll see them once every 2 or 3 weeks, and that's it. So I'm like, all right, is it the acorns? Is it the heat? Are they sick a little bit? Disappear any day? It's really been a head scratching type fall, but it is what it is. And you learn, you use it as a learning, teaching moment, I guess. You go through most falls and they're kind of normal. Well, this one's very abnormal, and it's very, very tough to try and get deer, during daylight. And I went from September 15th through October 21st, and I saw 2 deer that were over or 5.5 or older, and that's hunting every day, and
Wow.
Perry killed one of them, that 8.5. And then then the other one. Now, the other night we had an incredible night. The deer were moving. I saw some mature deer on a field, so that all changed. But it's only because the date range is getting here. That was 2 nights ago. I saw several matures on the same field. It's a big doe hole, and we went there for that reason. And all of a sudden, guess what? All the boys are joining the club. So that's I'm anxious to get back in that spot. But it's been really challenging, with the exception of a few sits. It's been almost movement has been non-existent.
Wow. Can you remember a year that we didn't say that's been a weird year? I love when people say that, like, especially about the rut. They're like, oh, the rut's been so weird this year. It's like every single year, people say that.
Well, yeah, the rut.
But you're not wrong. As far as October, you have a bunch of the drought, the acorns, the EHD, all those things. The uncertainty plays into one another, and you're like, oh, I don't know. The acorn,
the rut is generally not overly predictable. It can be very tough, depending on population dynamics, but October and December are generally pretty reliable for us because we have a lot of food and food plots. So therefore we usually do better in October and December. We're better around food than we are anywhere else. But this year, October was really, really tough.
So I think it's the acorn. I mean, certainly the EHD don't. I mean, if deer are dying, that's no good.
Yeah, it's all the above. It's multifactorial.
Are most of the crops off where you're at now?
I'd say we're 40-50% cut. Okay. And we're not as cut as I thought we would be, as dry as we've been.
Right.
I've been surprised at how many fields haven't been touched, but maybe that's just they don't have the time to get to them.
I'll be interested to see what we see.
I'd say harvested average to behind, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. I figured with as dry as you all are that you'd be ahead of schedule by now.
I would have thought the same, but it doesn't appear to be.
Yeah, because I know I was in Southern Ohio yesterday, and almost everything's off, or it was coming off. I'm sure they're making a mad rush for it right now.
No crops in Southern Ohio.
Oh yeah, they're there. Few and far between, but they're there.
Huh.
So yeah, it seems, because especially with the corn, obviously the corn comes off. That's a lot of cover lost. Those deer start to congregate in some of the more permanent cover at that point.
No doubt. I'm ready for all that.
Yeah.
Anything that help. At first, when we first started the season, we're like, well, all the beans are green, well, and the beans turn, they defoliated, and we're like, well, it's hot and the crops are still in, and then, like, it's September, and then October hits, first 10 days go by, we're like, well, it's
crops
gotta
are still standing,
and now we're to the latter part of October. I told Wade and Perry, I go, if by November 5th we're still coming up with excuses, I said, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
And the cold front is here, but I'm optimistic. I think we'll do quite well over the next few days. My mother is up. She's going to be crossbow hunting with myself and Perry.
Beautiful.
Taylor flew last night with my granddaughter Mabry. So Taylor's going to be in a stand tonight for the first time. So we are excited to take Lucille and Taylor out and I'm excited to get that picture with Mom, Taylor, Mabry, and then we all go hunting. So it's a big deal for me this week. I can tell you, I'm excited.
It's gonna be
what
great,
a magical
man.
time of year, man. It's like we're really planting our heels trying to slow this down, right? I mean, get through this hot spell, I guess. But after, we've had some already in October, just these camps, just the mentality. It's like, hey, we're all together again. Haven't seen some of these guys in a long time. Get some day beers out, some naps, so, like all of the above. It's just it's good. It's a good thing.
And it'll fly by. We'll blink and it'll be
I
Thanksgiving.
know.
We will blink and it will be Thanksgiving. It goes so quickly once it's here.
It's scary. I mean, we talk about it every year. You get to October. I mean, right now with like the color changes and stuff, it's one of the most, like, I just want things to slow down just a little bit because
Amen.
you go so fast through it. And even like this, like when you get these warm streaks and stuff, it's like, I'm going to sit it out and hunt. But man, from the 24th or 23rd or 24th of October to Halloween, I love that week of hunting. I mean, to me, it's been one of the best that I've had in my career. But when you get these weather conditions like you have, it's like, do I kind of go out and hunt? Do I try to get some work done before I take a 3 or 4 day, cold front trip? It's tough to sit it out because it's only once a year. It's gone. That week's out.
God made October for us guys, right? I mean, it's the best deer hunting. There's college football, pro football, baseball playoffs. Like, you cannot, and the pretty weather, you've been hot all summer sweating, it cools down finally. Like, God gave us October. This is our month, boys. I'm telling you, this is it.
Yeah. But I do think, we talked about a lot of guys saying, hey, I'm going to sit out today or tomorrow, as this front kind of gets geared up, and, the best days are still ahead, and that's what's cool about it. But there is, I guess, Mark, in your mind, when obviously late season kind of has its own play, especially if you've got a buck pattern from bed to food. But if we strictly focus on November, at what point in November do you think there starts to be, I guess, what I would call a diminishing return?
We do our show 13 and we have a phase called the party's over. And that's somewhere just prior to Thanksgiving. We call it around the 20th of November, somewhere in there. It really depends on when the gun season comes in that state, what the herd dynamics are. Iowa's different than Missouri because Missouri rifle opens November 11th. Well, it puts the brakes on that deer herd really quickly, but usually by the 13th or 14th, it is done. But I would say in general, around the 20th, 21st, things start to slow down. And then you really need some weather fronts in late October or late November and early December to get them going again. And sometimes they don't ever get to where they're daylighting again, depending on how much pressure they went through, what the weather's doing, what the food source is that's available. So, the best time is the next 3.5 weeks, no doubt, on the calendar.
Yeah.
Plus, usually the previous 3 weeks is really good too. I love the entire month of October. The lull can sometimes be a little tough, but if you get a weather front, they're still moving really well. I'm banking on the next 3.5 weeks. I know that. But of course, December's good here in Iowa too, because the guns don't start popping until December.
What is if there is a definition of the October lull? Is that a certain date range, or is it like, how would you define that?
To me, the definition comes from what they look like on the front end of it versus how they exit it. Like if you look at the first 10, 12 days of October, they've still got a fairly sleek racehorse summer look. And then all of a sudden they don't move nearly as much, and they'll exit out of that about right now, the 24th, 25th of October, and they're swole up. That testosterone went through the roof. They look like that Brahma bull that's going to whip everybody's butt. And it's a big transition for the deer. And I think that transition internally really slows down their movement in terms of daylight.
Oh, wow. I'd never heard it put that. So you're talking, it's an actual transition of deer from summer, early season food transitioning into swolled up, kicking butts.
And winter coat comes on. Like, I think a lot of change happens to them in that 10 to 15 day window. They go in one way and they come out looking the other, and they don't move a lot in that period. They will move given cold fronts, but a lot of it's at night and it's not very far. A lot of scraping occurs. Yeah. I think their testosterone's going through the roof. It's there's a lot of change going on to them.
I'll tell you what, man, we had so there's 5 or 6 of us that hunt our farm in Ohio, and one of our guys killed a 4-year-old that we were targeting. Was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe about 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
On a cold front, tail end of a weather event, and maybe the second or third day. In the afternoon, early, killed it on a scrape. And that scrape was just getting obliterated. I mean, hammered by 2 or 3 different bucks. And like I said, that was a 4-year-old buck. I'm very confident. We had history from 2 years old.
Sure.
And he weighed 235 pounds,
Nice.
field dressed. And
Oh, big fat one. Beautiful.
and for us, I mean,
That's giant.
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's the biggest deer I've ever had on a scale there. And at 4 years old, I mean, he's not even probably at his peak weight there. So, and I don't.
They fluctuate with weather and crops and everything. It's
Well,
kind of variable.
And that was my
So-
thought. Is like, man, is it the acorn year that's really got him doing that? Is he just a big deer in general? Like he was some greasy cheeks from the acorns, right? He was a little fatty, but boy, he was just built. Like his muscle structure was like
I
insane.
think you got that skeletal structure as well.
His neck measurement, dude, I'm telling you, like right here at the bottom of his jaw, he's not been hanging or anything. That deer was 25 inches hair on.
Yeah, that's massive.
Beautiful thing when they look like that. Some of that, I think, Jared, can reflect back to what 2000 and the previous year was about, right?
Mhm.
Like, did he sustain any injuries that sidelined him during the rut, or did he have a really rough rut where he ran all over the place and brought his body weight down? So there are things that occur the previous year that dictate body weight the following year. So, I don't know if you could go back and look at pictures of him. That's when I've seen deer really, really blow. Like one that you go, why the hell did he pick this year to just blow body and rack thing? And it's almost always that I didn't have many pictures of him the year before. And I think things sideline them, right? Some little things nagging them, and they're quick to bed and stay in their bed if they're injured in any way. And if they miss the rut for some injury, all of a sudden they're going into the winter in much better shape than many of the other ones. If that injury wasn't so severe that it took them down, to where it was hurting them. So there's a lot of dynamics that go into that body and rack that it's hard to put your finger on, but I do believe that helps describe why some deer all of a sudden, well, how did he do that? Well, Terry's deer put on 60, 70 inches this year. And he was the darkest deer I had last year. He wouldn't daylight whatsoever. And I'm thinking in my mind, well, I wonder if he was sick. Maybe there was something wrong with him. Maybe he wasn't moving very much like a typical 4-year-old was. He killed him at 5.5 this year. So there's just little things that go on, through the river of deer time that change, what that deer looks like. I got a double drop time buck this year that 2 years ago was a 3.5-year-old deer, and he just looked awesome. You're like, all right, here's the next giant. And then last year he was a straight 8, nice frame, and just big mass, and just ran himself to death. Man, you get his picture every day all over the farm, just chasing does. And we didn't run into him. I don't think I even saw the deer. And then this year he came back, and you couple him running himself to death with a very dry May and June and an entire summer that's dry. And he shrunk up. He looks like he did when he was 3.5,
Wow.
Or 4.5 rather. He was 4.5, then 5.5. Now he's 6.5. So there's just
drop
so many
tines still, or
what's that?
Drop tines still, or no?
They were gone last year. They're back this year. So there you go with that.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how some of them will blow and some of them won't, and it's very hard to put your finger on. I would say it's almost impossible to go, that one's going to blow, because I've tried, and I've seen deer that looked horrible turn into just giants. That deer Terry's, like, if you would look at it last year, it is a nice deer, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't look anything like he does this year. I mean, it absolutely he's put 60, 70 inches on it. He's giant.
You don't think, Mark, there are certain genetic, certain things that tip you off? I mean, certainly you can look at an 8-point and say, well, he's probably always going to be that, or, versus, long tines, and a lot of them typically guys can look at and say, well, that's likely to be a high scoring deer, give him a couple of years. Sure.
Yes. In general sense. Yeah. An 8, probably not as good chances that a 11 or 12 buck point's going to be, but how long are the tines and what they end up doing. I don't know. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen some 8s that blew, and I've seen some 10s that go backwards. And it's like winning a lottery when one of them actually, ding, 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 he blows.
And if they live that long, dude, I've seen lately, past couple of years, we've really made a concerted effort to get these 3-year-olds into 4, which is tough where we're at, just with neighbors and pressure and stuff like that. And there's been a few times where I've been disappointed. It's like, they go from I don't know. I'm trying to think of one specifically, like that unicorn buck there was probably
40s,
135 as a 3-year-old, but like looked good, good frame. He was mainframe 10-point, big sticker up in front there. And then as a 4-year-old, he made that jump to 150, mid 50s, but I still was just like, ooh, he just, he needs another year, and sure enough, he got shot that year.
Well, as I say, Mark, that's the thing. We just talked to Don Higgins about it, and it's, the ability to watch some of these deer at 4 and especially at 5, in a year like this where it's been dry and maybe some of these deer didn't put on the inches we thought, it's like, for a lot of guys listening, the question comes up is like, do I try to roll the dice and see if that guy makes it another year? Maybe next year is more favorable and he blows up as a 6-year-old, or, if, as the opportunity presents at 5 years old, we all know how hard it is to get a deer to 5. Do you take that, deer this year? Do you really put the effort in to make it count?
I may have said this on your podcast last time I was on. Tom Ware said the best line I've ever heard: just let your heart decide. You'll know it's the moment you see him. If your heart says, I need to shoot that deer, shoot the deer. And if it's not in you, you see deer, you look at a 4-car and you're like, I'm not interested, right? Yeah. Just a girl walk by, and I'm not shooting that deer. Well, you get to that point where when the 4-year-old walks by, you'll know, you'll go, yep, I'm shooting him. Or,
there was a similar great quote by Napoleon Dynamite. It said, just follow your heart. That's what I do.
Yeah, that summarizes it pretty well.
Well, Tom Ware, Napoleon Dynamite. There you go.
Yeah.
Great.
It is funny when you get into those situations. And I mean, obviously, any of us who are blessed to have multiple mature bucks to hunt, like that's a great situation to be in. But for a lot of guys, especially if you've been following, I think the hard ones are if you follow a buck. I've got a couple in Kentucky that I've been following probably since they're 2 and they're 5 this year. And obviously, if I get a chance, I'm going to shoot them. But it's like, man, what if I let that deer try to get to 6 because he's made it to and I think people fail to realize how hard it is to get a buck to 5 or 6 years old, especially in today's society.
Depending where you're at, freaking 3 or 4 years old. Yeah. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Oh, dude, it's almost fall. You and I are both going to be in a tree stand with brand new Hoyt bows. We're going to be shooting the RX-7 carbon bow this year. I know Hoyt's also got the Venoms out, both equally smooth shooting, quiet bows.
Heck yeah, man. And we got a convert on our hands this year. We got a lifelong crossbow guy with a vertical bow in his hands for maybe the first time ever, a good friend of mine. And we've got them all decked out with the inline accessories from the QAD integrated Ultra Rest to the quiver. And also he's got the SL sidebar mount with a couple of stabilizers from Hoyt as well. So that's going to be a 6-shooting bow. Yeah, and Hoyt's been cool enough that anyone listening to this can save 20% on any of the soft good apparels online using the code HUNTR, HUNTR, no E. And if you want to look at the latest lineup of Hoyt bows, check out your local Hoyt dealer. Get serious? Get Hoyt.
It is very tough. They have the odds stacked against them. Hunting pressure, obviously, disease. Naturally, I think the species is built for 3 or 4. Based on me watching them for the past 3 decades, like they just seem to be ready to die at about 3 or 4 generally. Yeah. So it's very hard to turn the tables and get one to 5 or 6. And as you age, and you guys are both in your 30s, maybe?
No, I'm about to be 40.
We're both in our 30s.
Yeah, but
I'm 30. Jeremy's 39.
30s.
Well, as you age and the more seasons you go through, the less appealing 4-year-olds are or 5-year-olds, especially when you do it a lot, like you guys do, or like we're lucky enough to do. So one thing that I've enjoyed lately, I take a lot of people hunting, and I love going with them. Like Mom tonight, if we see a rack buck, and I know it's one that she's going to shoot, which she's 90 years old. So there's no way.
No pickiness there.
She sees one that she smiles, I'm going to fall apart. Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't shoot it, but the fact that she's going to, I know I'm going to come apart.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think you can live vicariously through others and enjoy. It's fun for me to go with Taylor or Mom or Wade or Perry or Coon Dog, and I have more fun going with someone else than when I go, because the likelihood of me seeing the deer I'm targeting is not real high. That's the way it is. So
I think that's a good point, because we've started to do that. We do that in Kansas with our dads. We kind of tee our dads up.
I just got back from a week with Corey.
Yeah, in some of the better spots, because especially if you're hunting a particular deer. I mean, if you're just out to kill a mature buck and you got a bunch of them running around, that's one thing. But if you're out to hunt a specific deer, which I bet the three of us do very often, I mean, the stars have to align, and there's a lot of hunts. You're probably better off taking somebody else to enjoy their success because it's just, it's not in the cards for you right now.
No doubt. And it's fun. It's a blast.
Well, so let me ask this, Mark. What if the deer you're hunting walks out in front of your mom?
Oh,
you push her out of the way?
I'm no, she's sitting right here with me. But
we met her last time.
Yeah.
I was at the lake that time we did it, but I'm taking her somewhere where there is a giant, and I hope he shows up tonight.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I'll let you know if he does,
Please do.
You'll hear me screaming from northern Missouri over to where you guys are. I'm excited to get in there tonight. Myself and Perry are taking her. Coondog and Wade are taking Taylor, and Grandma Tracy's going to stay back with Mabry. So
there you go.
It's gonna be
I think obviously with your mom, it's different. The one fear I do have, we talked about it a little bit, was with my kids. So mine are 7 and 11. They've both killed, multiple bucks, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. But obviously I set a lot of my properties up to have good bucks. And so my biggest thing with them is that I want them, I want a progression with them, right? I want them to, to have success, but I don't want it to also come too easy, right? I mean, for all of us, the reason we probably love hunting is we grinded it out when we were younger, right? I mean, the success was not handed to us very easily, but I think that's what really dug deep into us of why we love it and why we do what we do today.
Absolutely. It's a great point. We've made all the mistakes, and they really need to make some of theirs as well. They really need to go out and get banged around and not succeed. I think too much success too early is probably not a very good thing for any young hunter,
or any time, even at our state. It's not good to have too much success. I thought, dude,
probably anything. Sports or whatever. The failure is where you grow in life. I mean, that's how you get better, is by failing and making mistakes.
I really like quoting. Do you know Cody DeQuisto? Have you ever talked to him? That's Andre's son. That's Lone Wolf Custom Deer.
I don't know that I've met Cody.
Cody's really cool. He's like kind of a hipster. He's big on the mobile stuff and whatever. But one thing I really like that he said is he's like, you thought you wanted to kill that deer, but you didn't. What you really wanted was to go out there and suffer and struggle and just you just keep coming back for it. The experience. And so it kind of paints the picture that it's better to have, like, whatever it was, you missed that deer, or you just struggled through the season, you didn't see him, because that's what keeps us coming back. That's what grows the passion more than if I just went out and shot the deer that I wanted to shoot. Like.
No doubt. And you kill them in the preseason, right? You do all that work, and all the plot stands, the access, all the planning on apps and weather and all that stuff. You kill them then. And then the reality of sitting there, well, it's not nearly as exciting as preparing to sit there.
Yeah.
The fun part is the journey, not necessarily the destination of sitting in that stand and watching the deer go by, because there's some long hours coming up in front of us, and it's fun and it's enjoyable. But I love the preparation. I love trail cameras. I love finding a new spot. It's so much fun to find a new spot for a trail camera and put it out and just see what's walking through there and learn for future seasons.
Yep.
And, when you stop learning, I think, regardless of what it is, whether it's hunting or anything else, that's when you start to get bored and look for something else to do. So that's the great thing about white-tailed deer. They're the ultimate teacher, and you really never stop learning in this game. Like, every year they throw you curve balls, like you were saying earlier. Every year we're like, oh man, the rut was terrible, or what happened to the rut? And well, they're teaching us. They're teaching us year by year, and at some point we'll be done with it. So you got to soak up every day and enjoy every second, enjoy every minute. But I love the prep more than I do the actual process.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've seen it a lot on this is if you don't have property that you can do the management, a lot of the pre-work on and stuff, people have a tough time understanding that you could be as passionate or more passionate about that as you are the hunt itself. And we get a lot of people that'll say, well, that's not hunting, that's deer farming or whatever. They just don't understand that working the land and scouting new areas and putting up cameras and all of that through the off season. In fact, a lot of people would say, including myself, like, I enjoy that as much as I do the hunt itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the hours never end, but they don't seem like hours per se. I mean, you can go out and put in 12 and look at your watch and go, oh, wow, I worked 12 hours today, and not even skip lunch, not drink enough water. You guys can relate. Like, when you're that passionate about what you're doing, It really doesn't ever seem like work, but there's some hours in it, man.
Mark, this Illinois farm that we're going to hunt for the first time here this next couple days, whatever it was. When did we go out there?
End of July.
End of July. We went out there, and it was the only time that we could go. It was like, hey, this is the time that makes sense for us to get out there, and it lined up for us to be able to get some food plots in and stuff. Just, bare bones. Like we were going to broadcast into standing, back corners of CRP fields and pay a neighbor kid to spray them and stuff. So, and part of that trip was we wanted to get some stands hung, get some things like prepped, get some cameras out and stuff. Dude, it was 115 degrees for like 2 or 3 days in a row. I'm talking, it was not safe. I thought I was going to have a heart attack at one point.
We didn't even say anything. We hydrated as best as we could. I mean, it looked like we went swimming, but Jared and I got back to the hotel or the Airbnb, and I was like, hey, dude, I didn't want to say anything, but I think I had a heart attack out there at least once.
Yeah. It's going to have to resuscitate him.
Absolutely. Yeah. It gets tough in the summer, no matter where you're at. I mean, there's some long, hot days out here. I know that.
But that's what puts it in. I mean, that's what makes it come together at this point, or especially when you talk food plots, as you get to the end of November into December. I mean, you always wonder, like, when do these food plots really pay off? Like then, like when that food is standing during that time, when those bucks are ready to put the feed bags on, man, it pays off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Until you get a 10-inch snow on November the 15th, it buries all your green fields or something like that. It's always curveballs.
Well,
always
I've been enjoying here even in October. I got back to clover as a staple on our Ohio farm. For some reason, I kind of just got away from it I don't know why, because I was like, I didn't know, like I couldn't figure out when to hunt them, or I couldn't figure out like when it was most.
Doesn't have the visible tonnage as like a big brassica field and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know what I did there for a while, but this past year I was like, I got to get back to clover as a state. I kind of have like my rule of thumb in terms of acreage on that farm is an acre or less is clover, an acre or more up to the point that it can hold like a grain plot is I'll do brassicas or like some kind of a green field, and then on our farm, it's 3 or 4 acres or bigger, I'll consider putting into a grain field. So now I've got all these, I've got 6 or 7, half, quarter to half acre clover plots that are like just, beautiful.
Yeah, look great.
These October sits are like just a lot of fun. I got edges are torn up with scrapes and stuff, and they're cool.
Mark, how are your plots after the drought?
You know what? Surprisingly, they look amazing. And I will tell you why. We took a chance. We rolled the dice because of the drought we went through last year. And we planted some plots 2 times last year, some 3, some 4. But I would say on average, we planted 3 times last year.
Wow.
And they're about late July. We had a wet forecast in early August.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we were like, let's put them in. And we put everything in. Missouri farms, Iowa farms, and I'm talking, this is 40 plus fields. You're talking 50, 60 acres of green. It's a lot. It's a process between going every one, spraying, working it, fertilizing it, planting it. It is a pain in the butt and a lot of hours, but we did it. And then over the next 2 weeks, we probably caught 5 to 7 inches of rain across 1-inch events. So, and then it just stopped. It quit.
Yeah.
And
we got that too.
I've got brassica fields that are so tall, the deer will not walk through them. I'm telling you, they are up to their chest. We're 2-tracking a lot of our fields, just trying to get deer to use them again.
Wow.
Now, it's going to pay off in December in a big way because the bulbs are this big and the tubes are this big. It will pay off. And I keep telling Wade and Perry, because we're all like, yes, this isn't like a normal year for us, because, the clover's been real good because clover stays young and growing and generating, and you got to really hit the jackpot with a brassica to get it at the right height where it's ultimate palatability in the early part of October, because if you plant too late, it's too short, they eat you down to dirt. If you plant too early, you got them big like I have right now. It's very difficult to hit that target in the bullseye on a brassica or a radish field.
So when did you plant those, Mark? When did you plant these ones that end up being that tall?
We started in late July around the 28th, and we were still planting them around the 6th, 7th of August. We probably were fully planted by 7th of August.
That's crazy.
So,
I had to replant for a second time. We both planted first around the mid-July. Like we like to
20th maybe.
Yeah. 15th to 20th, something like that. And for some reason, I still don't know what it was. I had like a total failure on 3 different food, like just no germination, no nothing. I don't know what happened, but that caused me to have to go back. And I was looking at that forecast. We were getting that same rain events that were coming in there. So I replanted them all on August 5th, which is later than I like to do initially, but we got that good rain. And then, same as you said, it shut right off. So it got real dry again. And then all of our brassica plots were just getting hammered in end of August, early September because of the drought.
Yeah, there's so much water content in those brassica leaves.
Yeah.
Yes, so much.
So
Kneel down in them.
So now I'm like down to dirt again, pretty much. Like I have some brassicas, but I'm,
My cereal grains are in some of the spots are good, but.
Oh yeah. Well, I put oats into every one of my clover plots, so that's helping.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's difficult to hit that 10 ring.
It is.
It's very difficult to have them optimally the right size where browse pressure is real heavy when you want to hunt there. Clover is a much easier, cheaper solution to that. So we have clover fields. It's kind of we planted about 40 green fields. We have another 40 fields that are clover just as a fail safe for our insurance policy. So we're always prepped and ready to go. But add acorns and none of it makes a lot of sense. Add acorns, heat, and EHD.
Yeah.
Do you guys do cereal grains in any of your plots?
We do. We have a product that we love called Last Bite, and we generally plant it the fall before that. We're trying to establish a clover field the next spring. So we go in with an extra heavy dose of clover inside the Last Bite, and it's got a lot of cereal grains in there. The other one we like is a product called Wintergrass, and Wintergrass is that product that, say you get to mid-September and you failed once or twice, you're too late for brassicas here. So we'll come back with Wintergrass, and it's an oat rye triticale mix that they just smoke. It's a really good.
Mark, are you pretty familiar with rye? You guys plant a fair amount of that, or
to the point that it's in Last Bite or Wintergrass? Yes.
Okay, the question that I have is, we planted a fair amount of that in Illinois. I also planted some on the home farms this year, and I've heard guys say that if you let it get to a certain point, get it too far along the following year without spraying it, that it will actually put some toxicity back into the soil. You have to spray it before it gets to that point. Do you know?
I'm not familiar with that, because I'm certain we've had some fields that we just went in and mowed off the next spring, but I haven't seen any of that. I need to ask that question. But we're big on triticale as well, because it's a hybrid between wheat and rye, and they seem to like it really well too. I would say if a guy didn't plant anything else, he could go out with triticale and do well.
A hybrid between wheat
and oats.
Wheat and rye.
Between wheat and rye. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, the one thing that we see a lot, and frankly, talking about this weather that we're catching right now, is that'll be a pretty big jump to a lot of these cereal grain fields and clover fields. Just some rain, a little bit warmer soil temperatures, it'll give it a little bit of a jump there on the growth side for sure.
That is the cool thing about all these different blends. It's they have different purposes throughout the season, but they also give you a lot of chances to fix your mistakes or come back from the weather. It's man, okay, if the clover doesn't work in April or May, it's all right, get some or whatever. And if the brassicas fail, I'll get some cereal grains in there. It's you have opportunities to save the plots.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's exactly the way we plan it out too. We have fail safes so that if if A doesn't work, B should. If B doesn't work, C dang sure will. So. But if you don't get rain, none of it works.
Yeah, and I mean that, and then from an actual hunting standpoint, you get these bumper acorn crop years, and you can have the best food plot in the world, and sometimes they're just not going to be in it.
And you know what? That acorn, though, it's so vitally important to the overall health of the full herd. It's Mother Nature's way of taking a herd that's perhaps a little sick with EHD and giving them that food source that they really need in that moment to bounce back. Because these button bucks that are on the ground right now, watch what happens in 5 years. Those button bucks that are on the ground with a really heavy acorn crop almost certainly will do better later in life than those that do not have an acorn crop. It's legit.
Wow.
Crazy, man. Yeah. So, Mark, obviously you're looking at this, you're getting the rain now, you got this giant front end. How does your strategy change here over the next week? In terms of because obviously there's probably first handful of does are starting to come into estrus, and obviously we're getting closer to that peak estrus standpoint as we get into that first week of November. But walk us through here this front coming through, even starting with tonight. You've got Mom and Taylor going out. Rain's supposed to shut off. You said 2-3 o'clock. What are you guys sitting on tonight? What are you looking at?
Taylor's going to be on a Last Bite field, and myself, Mom, and Perry are going to be on a radish field, and both of them are interior spots. the access is a little tricky getting in, but it's our final south before all these norths come in. So we're going to roll the dice and go. And both of them are doe holes. So this time of the year, I want cover, I want security close, and I want a lot of does, because where those does are, we saw it the other night when we sat this bottom and all these bucks were, early season it was does every night, and then all of a sudden all the bucks showed up to the party. And both of these spots the last few nights have shown some racks showing up. So I have a really good feeling about tonight. If they move, the pressure's really low tonight, like 29.75 or so. However, the cold front hits tomorrow, so I have a feeling they're going to move, A, because the rain's stopping, and B, because the pressure's bouncing while we sit there, and it's starting to rise through the night, and all that cold is about to hit them. So I suspect tonight could be extremely good, actually.
Is that the main premise for this time of year? I had a hunt that panned out. It sounds like how you're hoping tonight's will, except I didn't have any bucks show up, but I had like 12 or 14 does like all around me on a fairly secluded clover field the other night. Is that, that this week right now, it kind of seems like that's what it's about. It's like almost like the scrapes are, they're there, but it's not their primary interest. It's more like they're looking for where these does are at on these greens. They're starting to come in and check them. They want to come start nosing them around.
No doubt. It's transitional between all that scraping activity and the nosing. So you'll see bucks come in and nose everything off and then go work scrapes slowly around the field, right? So it's a transitional period before they start, really chasing them here in another week or so. So I love late October. I think if you're on one, there's a good chance he's going to daylight for the first time the whole year. And I think the last week of October is probably one of the best weeks. It may be the best week to kill a giant. It probably is, actually. Yeah. It's really, really good. It's up there. That 26 through 31 is up there with 6 through 10. And then also the 5th through the 10th of October's unbelievable. And then mid-December, I'm going to call it 15th through the 20th, somewhere in there. Those 4 periods to me are up there with, that's when you're seeing them, especially if it's coupled with good weather and a moon phase that's favorable.
So obviously you've got places in Iowa and Missouri you're hunting. Do you identify your farms as kind of saying, hey, I know this is an early season farm. This one is really when we get to this late October, early November. And then you've got other ones that are holding, maybe not even showing a shooter right now, but in the late season, it's got so much food, it's just going to suck them all in.
Absolutely. The farm Taylor's going to is a great example. It's a brand new farm. The pictures all summer sucked. I mean, it's been horrible till the last 10 days here. And all of a sudden we went from 1 mature buck to 5 mature bucks on a 334 acre farm, right? Just like that. They all showed up. So we're learning the DNA of that farm right now. We're like, we haven't sat it yet. Tonight's the first sit on this farm, and it's all dialed in. We hope, or we felt like we were dialed in going into it, scouting it in March, and then going in with the food plot strategy and the stand strategy that we deployed. So we'll find out tonight when she goes and sits there what kind of movement they have, but I feel like it's going to be good. Where I'm taking Mom tonight, it's one of those farms that's good year round because it's the perfect mix of beautiful hardwoods, big thick bottoms, open CRP fields plus food. Like if you wanted to design it's an 80 acre parcel. If you wanted to design an 80 and go, this is what it should look like, that's what this one looks like. Now earlier in the season, we were hunting some of our early season honey holes, and killed some deer off of those honey holes. So absolutely. And I think that comes down to the farm's DNA, but sometimes it's difficult to look at that farm on the front end and go, I think this is an early season farm, or I think this is going to be best during the rut. You really need 3, 4, 5 years with different crop rotations, different acorn crops to find out the true DNA of a farm and then decide what your strategy is going to be going forward. And you get really good at hunting farms the more that you hunt them. I always say years 3 through 5, you're hitting your stride on them.
And that's huge for people listening to this because, in reality, most people are hunting one farm, right? That's what they have, right? One property. And I think when, you get into some of these time periods, I have farms right now like that where, I'm looking at like my new Kentucky farm. I planted all this food. I figured there would be so many bucks running around on that place right now. It'd be crazy. It's the same bucks that I've seen since July. There's not been a single new one yet.
Well, that acorn crop may have a lot to do with it, too.
The acorn crop may have a ton to do. It was old pasture. It was 50 acres of old pasture that I converted to 18 acres of food. I don't even know if some of these deer realize that it's there.
I think that's what it is. They haven't found it yet. Yeah.
It's hard to say.
They may not have, but Next year could be different. The next year could be different. And then 4 years might be like this year. And you always take notes on what the crop rotation is in your area, what the acorns are. And through time, all of a sudden, things are going to reoccur. And then you can look back at your notes and say, oh, I could probably expect something like this year.
Yeah.
I think note keeping and history is so vitally important to whitetail hunting in the future. Like that's typically how we kill the bulk of our deer, is just, leaning on our experiences from years past.
I think that's one of the number one things that whitetail hunters don't do, is that they pay attention to the here and now, or the recent past.
It's hard, dude.
Right?
I mean, that fall, that shift or whatever it is. I mean, I think there's multiple shifts throughout the year, but it's hard to it's like, the shift is coming. But it's hard to make a decision, maybe not to hunt or something like that, anticipating it to happen again. It's just it's almost magical when it does. You're like, holy crap, there they are. We've kind of seen the same thing on our Illinois farm. It was like nothing for months, and then within a 3-day time frame, it's like we had 3 shooters show up, and we're like, oh.
And cell cameras almost made that worse, right? Because they showed you what's going on. You get in that rut of looking at the cell pictures and not looking back at historical data. And I think they almost make you a worse hunter, in my opinion. Like they're kind of like having the answer to the test before the test is taken. But if you think about a cell picture when it comes to your phone, it already occurred.
Yeah.
Right. So you're I want my move to be in front of that deer, not behind.
Yes.
So if you're hunting from the rears, which you are with cell pictures more often than not, then you're not out in front of that deer. So I'll look at cell reports, but more often than not, I'm in my computer looking at the previous year's information to try and make that next move, as opposed to follow what that deer's doing.
I think that's huge, because I do think I've been guilty of it, right? Where I'm, I feel like I'm starting to get a bead on a buck. Maybe I'm starting to get a pattern on it, but the whole time I'm a step behind, right? I'm seeing this on the cell cam develop. I'm a step behind. So even though I'm looking at a pattern develop, it already developed. It was already there.
It's past tense. As soon as it hits your phone, it's past tense.
Yeah. How do you guys do that, Mark? How do you? I assume you're pretty intentional about categorizing specific information from years past. Like, most of us probably on our phones. We get the Stealth Cam app. It's like every time. Maybe not every time, but every time I get a good picture of a shooter buck, I screenshot it, and it's just cataloged in my phone's gallery. Fortunately, I can scroll back. I'm like, okay, what was happening this time? And there's a chance I didn't screenshot it. It wasn't a great picture, but I have somewhat reliable data. I assume you guys have a better process.
It's the same thing I've been doing. It's kind of old school, but in 2007, we started with Reconics, and they had a program called BuckView, and it was quite advanced for back in 2007. And from 07 to current day, I have every racked buck in BuckView that I've ever taken a picture of. Now, I might have got a series of 10, and I keep the best one of the 10.
Sure.
But by the end of the season, I will take all of the cards from our cell cams in addition to all of the cards from cameras that are out there that are not cells, that I've got pre-scouting areas for future years, and I go through all of them in February and March. It is a laborious process, but every photo. So in many cases, I've already looked at all these photos once, and I'm about to look at them again, and then save them and categorize them and mark them per deer. It takes hours upon hours upon hours.
Oh my word!
Wow. And are you using DeerCast and associating weather and stuff with it as well?
Oh, yes, because I screenshot every day.
Okay.
So I have DeerCast laid out in my phone, and then if I've got a deer or a day where holy cow, I got 10 shooters, I specifically go back and look at not only the prediction from that day, but each individual weather variable from that day. So through that process, Terry and I created DeerCast with all of our thoughts and gut feelings. Since then, we've tweaked it each and every year based on actual data points going, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. So while I'm trying to be better at killing deer, I'm also trying to tweak that app to the point that it is phenomenal. So Terry and I, we both do the same process, and it's how we're killing them. That historical data is just murder on those deer, more so than a cell cam, in my opinion.
Would you say more at certain times throughout the season than others?
No, I think throughout. Like early October, where's he at? Who could show up this week? What's he feeding on? All those different things come into play. And if you've got that coupled with that DeerCast information or that weather from that day, you get really deadly really quick, but it's a time consumptive mofo. I mean, it is time beyond measure. I can't tell many hours I've sat looking in that PC, looking at those pictures.
Well, that's one thing the cell cams are really good for is obviously they're good for a lot, but like literally when I get a picture of a shooter, yes, I've maybe missed that opportunity, but I can look and see what is the weather doing, what are the factors right now. I can literally, I don't have to go back and try to figure out what they were, which can be kind of tough, I can literally say, oh, well, it's, 5:15 right now. There's a northwest wind.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the best things that I think has helped me educate is
buck movement in general.
Buck movement in relation to wind direction. Now, given there's going to be different movements in terms of the terrain and stuff like that, but when you get a picture of a buck and you see where he's going and you take a look and you're like, that's a south wind, it's coming cornered across his face, like all of those things start to play a big factor in kind of understanding.
You can start to go back and figure, okay, where was he betting on that?
Yeah,
wind?
why did he come that way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Yeah, it really is. I think obviously, Mark, you spend a ton of time categorizing that stuff, but think of the blind hunting that sometimes happens. I mean, think of the hours you spend in a tree stand, essentially just banking on somewhat gut and luck to make it happen. There's a lot of time put into that aspect of it too, versus, hey, I've got a pretty good process here. My move or my approach to the hunt tonight is based on data, right? It's based on history.
It's analytics in baseball, the way I always compare it. If you look at what happened, the movie Moneyball, how they started breaking baseball players down, and all the teams are all statistically driven now, right?
Yep.
In this count, this pitcher's probably going to throw this, and this batter's probably going to do this, and the infield is aligned thusly, and the outfield is aligned. Well, I think it's the same thing with whitetails, but it takes a long time to put it all together. I mean, a long time. It's how we developed DeerCast, when we started seeing the trends during certain weather events.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth Cams, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted trail cam addict, I've definitely been guilty of underhunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually a mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. You can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy. How about your, obviously you're watching a lot of these bucks, like Terry's buck, you're seeing year after year. What does the consistency look like in some of those deer? I mean, are you seeing variation with age? Are you seeing them be fairly consistent throughout their lifespan?
I think there's a lot of consistency in where they go and what they do, but as they age, and there's certain ages they're very difficult to get to daylight. 5 and 6 are son of a guns to see them during daylight activity. So then all of a sudden, I always talk about the slot machine where it has to line up. All 3 dials have to line up to jackpot to win. Well, by the time they're 5 or 6, it's one of those big slot machines where it takes 5 or 6 things to line up to actually see that deer during daylight and then get an arrow through him. So it varies by age and it varies by pressure. How much pressure is that deer receiving, and just what else is going on with the herd dynamic. That's something that I'm fascinated with. Like, you got this buck and you got a plan for him. He's 4.5 years old. Next year, 5 years old. I think I could kill him if I do this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden, a 6-year-old shows up that grew in body, grew in mass, and all of a sudden my 5-year-old's not doing anything that I thought he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't see him, and he disperses. Dispersal is one of the greatest things to understand and put your arms around for a whitetail hunter, because I've seen him disperse at 2 years old. I've seen him disperse at 5 and 6 and go somewhere else and never come back. And then 2 years later they return. So that ever shifting dynamic of the herd dynamic, ages and bodies and weather and food and drought and all that stuff has them moving into different home ranges. and they're pushing each other around. I think it would be phenomenal if you could radio tag or tag, $100 over 20,000 square acres or 20,000 square miles and just try to monitor them through their whole life. I think we would learn a tremendous amount about them. They're very complex. They're not complex, but they're very complex. Some of them are older, lazier. They do the same thing every day. They don't move very much, and others are moving all over the place, and they're very difficult to put your thumb on. And I think the more deer you hunt, specifically when you hone in on a target, you start learning about the variety of personalities that these deer have. Just like you meet 20 people in a day, you'll meet 20 different personalities. I think whitetails have a lot of different personalities, much like cats, much like dogs, much like rams. Some of them are hyper, and some of them are laid back and lazy, and some of them are big, some of them are sleek and fast. And it's, I think oftentimes we as hunters put all whitetails in one little box, and they're going to do this. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
That is not the case whatsoever. Their personalities vary, and the weather and all the environmental things vary. Therefore, it changes each and every year, which is that curveball and that chess match that you never quite win. Certainly not enough.
I love making the comparison. Dogs probably is a more accurate, but I love making the comparison to us, just our patterns, just the things that we do. It's like just to think about the things that you do. It's like, man, if somebody was watching me, whatever, all summer or whatever, they might notice that I took a few trips to the farm, and that I whatever I was doing out there. But like, man, if they looked at that and said, well, I'm spending like almost all my time at work or at home or, at this, like, I'm going to set up to kill them.
How they pattern.
All of a sudden, like these cold fronts in October started coming. And it's like, well, I started going to the farm and staying there quite a bit, and then it's like that guy'd be SOL if he was trying to kill me. But if he was waiting for me at the farm, if he knew historically I was going to show up here, or even just on a micro scale, it's like, this guy goes to the refrigerator in his house like X amount of times per day, or he spends most of his time on the couch or at the desk, or it's like, where in the house here can I not only can I kill him, but can I access it to kill him? And on what conditions does he do this or that?
I was going to say, think of there are some patterns you make, but there's a lot of things that you do something different. Or it's random, or this happened, or whatever. Kids. Yeah,
not everything is like my whole life is not a perfect diagram of patterns.
Neither is theirs.
It's like, oh shit, the mailman came and did this, or somebody called and I had to go and run and do that. And it's like, things come up. Things come up for deer too, I think.
Yeah. I think that social dynamic is probably the least understood and the most fascinating. And we all have those bucks. Like, I think that's one of the cool things about camera, or especially if you run on video mode. Like, there are bucks I know that I can snort wheeze in.
Let me throw this out there, Jeremy. So we all talk about the primary factor. Mark, you probably know more of them than we do, but just food, cover, water, whatever are the core factors. And factor in weather, temperature, pressure, moon phase. These things that we factor. Is it possible that social dynamic is the biggest or one of the biggest?
I would say that yes, it is possible. But to Jeremy's statement, it is probably the most misunderstood part of it. It's very difficult to study, I think, from the overall big dynamic of what goes on. Like, you see it if you sit there and watch it every day. You start to see different patterns, and then all of a sudden the following year it all gets crushed.
It all crushes.
So I think we as hunters, the takeaway from this is, A, it's very difficult to understand. B, we have to be ready to change at a moment's notice. Like, if things aren't working, if your pregame plan isn't panning out, then be ready for plan B and plan C. Bring in a different reliever from the bullpen, because we can't get this guy out, right? So make sure that you are malleable based on the given fall, the environment, what it's giving you. Is it giving you hot weather, cold weather, whatever? Be ready to change and accept change. Don't get set into this is how I'm going to kill that deer, because they may not be killable that way. Make sure you're ready to go with a different plan.
It seems like from an observational standpoint, like deer farms would be the best way to try to grasp an understanding of the herd dynamic, because it would be the same in the farm.
I mean, we've done it in the research facilities in Mississippi State too. Even we had wild deer, so we captured wild deer. We put them in. The moment you put them in an unnatural situation, it all goes out the window, right?
It goes out.
Their herd dynamic does too.
Yes.
In what way?
That's why I said $100 across 20,000 acres or 20 square miles. I said 20,000 square miles, 20 square miles or 20,000 acres, $100. watch them. And then when you're done with that group, put another one. Every year, put 20 or 50 or 100 of them out there in that same environment, and then change the environment. Go to Texas and do it.
Yeah.
Go to Western and do it. And all of a sudden it's all different in all these different places and different subspecies as well. They're fascinating to watch and actually see one during daylight. It's a flipping miracle when one actually walks in front of you.
I think that's where the individual variation comes in. Like, I mean, we've all probably seen a mature buck who, like, he just doesn't want to be around people like any other deer. Like, he always seems like he's on his own. He's solo. He's just, until it comes time to quarter doe. But, like, I've got deer, especially early in the season, like in that 1st to the 15th of October, if I see a 2 or 3 year old, I know that 5-year-old is not far behind just because of the series of pictures and where I've seen them in observation. But that obviously changes as soon as you get to this time of year.
How crazy.
And it's so weird because you're trying to pick up on those things. Like, there's plenty of times where I've seen a deer and I know for a fact that the deer I'm hunting is behind him. I haven't seen him yet, but just because of the time of year and what I've seen in him, there he is. He comes with it. And then there's other times of the year where it's like, I may not see a deer the entire day, but I know if I see the one, it's the right one.
Let me throw this out to Mark. He might find this really interesting. Mark, I killed a buck in North Dakota in September 6th. A really good one, like a 160 class mainframe 7x6. He was probably like a 5-year-old deer. And the first time we saw him, he was with a doe. Okay, September 3rd or something like that. It was just him and this doe, and he was in full velvet. And, I saw him hit a scrape and stuff, and they're obviously not rutting or anywhere close to that. They're just like together, and it was weird. And I ended up killing that deer 3 days later. He had shed all of his velvets. He was full out of velvet, still with that doe. The same doe come in first. Like, and I just, Lucas, the guy that I was with, and myself just reflected on it. I thought it was like really interesting that this buck just seemed to be, he was just with this doe. It was like a long-term thing they had.
Interesting. Were there a lot of deer in the area or few? How was the population?
I would say few. Yeah, not a lot.
So it might have just been a social thing. Hey, it's a deer. I'm going to hang out.
I know.
They will herd up that time of the year and come out in groups. The bed is similar, the food's similar, therefore they're together, especially if you're limited in cover and limited in food. They may just be doing the same thing because there aren't a lot of options.
I wouldn't say that they are limited in food or in cover. I mean,
I think that's that social dynamic.
It was public land and it was river bottom stuff. I mean, thousands of acres of dense wilderness. I mean, there's moose out there and all kind of stuff. And then they had big giant ag resources too. And so I don't know why there was limited deer. In fact, it was a main topic of conversation. We're like, what's going on with the deer herd out here? They had some EHD, they had some.
Yeah. Were there a lot of mosquitoes?
Oh my word. Yeah.
I went to North Dakota once, and I've never seen more mosquitoes anywhere in my life than a North Dakota river bottom. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, dude, I was obliterated. I'm really proud of that deer because, I killed him in the last 10 minutes of that 5-day hunt. And guys will hunt their whole lifetime for a deer like that, which was. I was stoked with that in and of itself, but also the conditions were freaking brutal. I mean, it was hot and it was muggy and the mosquitoes were just destroying us.
Tough hunting to stick with him from velvet to hard iron. That's an accomplishment. Congratulations.
It was cool.
I think that's a perfect example of the kind of social dynamic that we just don't know. Like,
what were they doing? I
think there's just a community at that time of year. I mean, those deer still like to have some sort of social interaction with each other. That change that Mark talked about in terms of, them going into their winter coat and throwing testosterone, like that just hasn't happened. I mean, he just came out of velvet. So I think, it's just the deer just like to be there. And if there's not many deer in the area, which there weren't, why not?
There's also that little flurry right there. They're developing all summer. Their antlers are growing. Then all of a sudden their antlers get hard. They're probably mid-August sometime. They're hardening out. And then they shed their velvet. So this is the first time they're feeling that start of testosterone.
Yep, that's true.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I need to be doing this. And then they'll just get into a feeding pattern. And then that really doesn't reoccur till mid-October or late October. So every year you see this little flurry of rubbing and scraping in early September. And then they'll kind of go cold and then flare back up in mid-October. So it could have been some of that as well.
Yeah, I did see a big open scrape that day too. It's interesting what they do.
Just a little bit of testosterone, and then that social dynamic tweaks a little bit. And
yeah, I wish more people got to experience that, like could see that the whole spectrum of a season. Like I think a lot of people amp up for just a week of hunting,
sure,
and you hope the weather's good and you hope the rut's good and stuff, but. Man, they do so much different stuff, from like the shifting that's happening to the different like cycles of scraping and rubbing of different food sources they're doing.
Think about the number of people that just gun hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And a deer's behavior during gun season is just so different.
Pretty limited window, yeah.
Yeah. You just never see the deer in its own element doing deer things.
It's normal for about an hour.
Then they're just running for their lives. It becomes, and I do think that, the more that you're in the woods, the more of those different phases that you kind of experience, the better hunter you become. You just pick up on so much different things, and different deer will, we all probably have certain deer that we've hunted that it's like, man, that deer taught me so much just because of the way that I chased them around or tried to pattern them or watched them do this. And that's the stuff that you're able to apply year after year. And eventually it all starts to put the puzzle pieces together.
It's fun, man. That chess match is fun.
So you've seen Ben Rising.
Oh, slob, man.
I assume you had to tie it up for him, right? You taught him everything he knows, is what he told me.
Yeah, Ben is so awesome. He's so good. I still remember the first time he ever called me. I put him on the team just because I'd never heard someone. He was a logger and still is, I guess. Never heard someone use the F word more in one phone conversation than Ben did that day. And I even mentioned that to him. And I put him on the team just for that very reason. Now, of course, he's not like that anymore. But back in the day, man, Ben Rising, he's a great guy and a great deer hunter and teaches a lot of people. I really enjoy Ben. He's a good friend.
We do too. Mm-hmm.
He's one of those guys that, you could pick up and drop somewhere and just say, hey, find that mature buck and kill it. And he would do it.
Dude. The dude is an absolute killer. It's just like...
He's a killer, and it reminds me his tactics are very similar to Stan Potts back in the day. Stan's killed like 4 or 5 200+ inch deer. Well, he was doing that back in the 80s and 90s,
yep.
And prior to Stan, Roger Rothar and the Winsels. So Ben's kind of like that. He's very aggressive, and he gets in there and gets after him, and I'm always a little bit more on the outskirts and not so aggressive right away. But, Ben's one of those guys. Stan was the same way. Stan hunted with us in the late 90s in Illinois, and myself, him, Terry, and Steve filmed together. We had a foursome, and we just rotate who was filming who for, several years. And Stan was always like, Terry and I are out on the edge, and Stan's like, we need to get down in that bottom where those big scrapes are, and the big rubs. And Stan was always get in the middle. And Terry and I were like, no, we don't want to run them out. And it was interesting to see Stan's techniques and learn a lot from that man. And I think I'm not saying he's exactly like that, but he reminds me of a younger version of Stan. Like, Ben gets in there, finds the deer, and makes them dead. He's really good. And Stan was very good at it. Nobody was better back in the day. And that's why we loved hunting with him so much, man. Stan's a wealth of knowledge.
Do you think, I don't hear a whole lot about Ben regretting those decisions either. Like, it seems every time he goes in for him, he kills him. Like, we don't do that because we're worried about running him out. It's like, he just kills him, and then it's over.
So it tells you he's a great woodsman, right?
Yeah.
Well, a guy that's lived his whole life in the woods, right? He understands when they move, how they move, what access he can take, what he can get away with, what he can't. And I'm sure he's failing some of the time. I'm sure he'll tell you, oh my God, I got blown out, or I ran a deer out on the way in, that type of stuff. But Ben knows what he's doing. He's a great woodsman. He's a killer.
I think that's the big thing. And the unfortunate thing is, because we've got more technology and more advances and things, there's a generation that's coming into hunting that isn't going to be as good of woodsmen that developed in the 80s and 90s, especially because, you didn't know. You had to get in there and find the scrape, find the rub line, learn where they're bedding or whatever. And so, it's going to be interesting here over the next even 10 years to see how people adapt to, that woodsman aspect. Do they hunt very conservatively? Are there people that are aggressive? Some people might just stumble into it and get lucky. There's just a bunch of factors.
I think it's one of those art forms we see being lost as technology advances. You know, you give a guy a DeerCast and a cell cam, and it'll take an average hunter and make them pretty dadgum good, in all honesty.
Sure.
You know, if you pick the best days and kind of know what's going on with cell cams that are in decent places, you can do it. Oh, can you bring her over here? I want to show these guys. Look at my granddaughter.
Oh, man.
Look at
Hey.
Avery.
Oh, boy.
She's a looker.
Look at that hair. Very
Just had a
cute.
napkin.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
She's like,
she's
I'm ready to
smiling.
play.
She likes when I owl hoot. She usually laughs.
Oh, yeah. That'll make a turkey gobble. She knows it.
Future.
Oh yeah, she was born April 21st, so I can't wait. Every year she's mine on that day.
There you go.
I want to bye. I can't wait to take her deer hunting and turkey hunting.
Oh, I
Awesome.
bet, man. That's awesome. That's it. I mean, that to me is kind of the thing that, you know, drives things now, is like, as much as I love being in the woods and having success, like I like getting my kids involved. And to the woodsman thing is, I've tried to take them kind of a step back from some of the technologies. Even if I feel like I'm going to go in an area and like, I might mess this up, I want them to see what fresh scrapes look like, what fresh rubs look like, why these deer may be coming through this area. And it's just because that's how I learned, you know, and that's how I cut my teeth. That's how I made mistakes that then taught me other things.
Isn't that the truth? Mom, yesterday, she goes, do you remember when I used to drop you off and go turkey hunting? I'd drop you off at 4:30 in the morning and I'd just pick you up at noon. And I said, oh, I remember it well. Like they put people in prison for what she was doing back then. Drop me off with this big piece of property and I'd just go hunt,
I know it,
and
man.
that's how you learn. I was like 11 or 12, you know, I was a young kid and she's dropped me off with a gun, say, I'll see you at noon. And whether you killed one or not, noon was the meeting time and meeting place, and then she'd take me home. So
I do the same thing, man.
Remember those meeting times and meeting places? Like
Oh,
that
it was
doesn't
so-
exist anymore. Those are gone.
I remember,
cell phone.
I would get dropped off with my bow, and I would hunt on the ground. I would just spot and stalk. I'd walk, I'd find scrapes, I'd set up, I'd call.
Yeah.
And I would spend 6-7 hours, and then I knew to come back and I'd either meet my mom and dad or my grandma, and like then I go eat lunch, and then I do it all again this afternoon. And I would put, I don't know. I mean, because you didn't have to, I don't know. I put 7-10 miles a day on, but the amount of observation data that your brain processed was just, it's off the charts. You know, it's hard to even fathom what you saw back then.
I remember some long sits, like without the cell phone. I remember just like flicking my release trigger. You know what I mean? Just, yeah, just, you know, there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's probably better that way, but.
Yeah. And the other thing, most importantly about that, Jeremy, you fell in love, right? I mean, that's that love affair developing as you're walking those hills and learning all that stuff. And as you're sitting there flicking that release, Jared, it's like, man, this is the best thing on earth. There's nothing better.
Know. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's probably the most challenging, besides access and other than that, getting our hunters involved, and you know how to make it what we call
getting
it basically
anyone to
how
like slow down.
Well,
to
how to
point.
make deer hunting a little bit more difficult, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want it to come so easy that, you know, it doesn't stick, right? It's got to be a little difficult. There's got to be a little bit of failure involved, because that's what makes you want it more, you know, just like anything. Like if you went out and you were the best football player that ever stepped on the field every year throughout middle school and high school and college, like, you know, it's great, you're succeeding, but like it's easy to you, you know, you just natural talent, you know. But the guys who like are out there and earning it and trying to get better every day, I mean, that's what keeps them going. That's the drive, that's the motor that makes you want to be better.
It's a blessing. That learning curve is an absolute blessing. We're all lucky to be on those curves and enjoying the conversations we have with podcasts and so on and so forth. And hopefully those that are taking the path we've already taken learn the hard way. I mean, that's the best way to learn, is out there, boots on the ground, man. Wear those boots out and walk it. You don't necessarily have to walk it during the season. Walk it in the off season,
Yeah.
February, March. You can learn a lot in the months of February and March. That's the best way to scout.
Yeah, I love those bare bone woods, to really be able to see what it looks like kind of at its least full.
I'm excited to be on our farm that time of year. We went out there for the first time during the summer, and it was already dense. And I'm like, this
Hot.
is it. But you know, we there's a lot of woods we haven't been in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. That new farm, I walked it in March for a full day. I think I put on like 12 miles that day on 334 acres. I just walked every hill and hollow I could find. And I was dead by the end of the day. But on DeerCast, I marked every scrape. I marked every trail. I marked every water hole, every place. I drew out the food plots. And now it's all laid out. Now, I had some intel from the previous owner, but then I coupled that with what I was seeing on the ground and my views of it and my access and so on and so forth. So his intel was good, but now I want to apply what I think I know, and tonight's the first sit. We'll see how it goes. Taylor's going in.
That's a really interesting thing you bring up there. We've never talked about this before. Is previous hunters intel?
I was going to ask that.
How often do you guys buy or start hunting properties that people have hunted previously, and you can pick up on what they were doing, either because they tell you or you find tree stands and stuff littered around?
All the time. I seek them out. That's the first step, in my opinion, of whether it's public or private or whatever the place is. Seek someone out that's been there already and steal every bit of information they're willing to give if they'll give it, and keep notes, and then couple that with what you think once you go walk the property. And combining those two opinions together is always going to yield a better result. Like there's no substitution for observed movement. It's one thing to look at sign and make a guess, but if you could talk to somebody that's observed how they move and where they bed and all that good stuff, there's no substitution for observed movement. So if you don't have the time to get it before hunting, try to find someone who has. And I think you probably do a whole podcast on that very subject. Pretty cool.
How much do you rely on a previous owner's history with bucks or sightings with bucks? Like, do you find a piece of ground and say, man, I can grow them, or does it really matter what they've seen and what they have history with on that property?
I think it does matter. Like the overall, I'm asking more questions about DNA of the farm.
Sure.
Like, what have you seen? What's the top end? How many? What's the age class look like? Yep. What are the neighbors like? Those questions. So I'm trying to learn more about the area and the DNA and then the overall movement. So I think it's very valuable, but you look at that person and gauge their experience level, and then take that with that as a cliff note. Okay, this gentleman's been hunting 10 years and he hunted this farm 3, or this gentleman's been hunting 35 years and he hunted this farm 15. Like that's a much more valued opinion than the guy experience and less experience on that farm. So it all comes with, it's relative to their experience on the place.
Because I think a lot of times, like if we get into a farm, or let's say we're looking at a farm, if they say, yeah, here's all the pictures I got and everything I see is 3.5 and younger, I'm concerned. I'm kind of judging them on what they're doing, but I'm a little concerned with just like the fact that you don't have any pictures of deer that are 3.5 or older.
It's probably a neighbor issue in that case.
Exactly.
Especially if you're talking to a manager or the size of the farm.
Yep.
Or just there's something's killing them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where people kind of overlook, because you could see some giant 3-year-olds, but if you're not seeing anything older than 3, you gotta kind of wonder what's going on around.
Absolutely. And I think like private farms that are close to public vary in DNA. I've had farms that are close to public ground that was hard to access and killed giants right next to that public ground, because when they got back there, it was tougher for them to get there along, whatever it is, as opposed to a public ground with a lot of access close to it. And you could tell that they're probably hammering them just a little bit. So it varies based on, and that goes for private ground as well. How much pressure, how effective are they when they put that pressure on? All of those things will help determine what the herd's going to look like and what you can expect to hunt. And then if it meets your expectations, great. If it doesn't, then, you might want to continue the search, find a better spot or make your spot better.
Mark, I wanted to ask you I don't know how much you guys own exactly, and I won't ask you, but you guys own quite a bit of ground between you and Terry and guys on your team. How much of your time, like how much, how much time do you spend dealing with neighbors, like whether it's issues or just meeting neighbors for the first time, or like how involved of a process is that?
A lot. I don't know how many neighbors I have, because I don't have like a big farm. I have a lot of smaller farms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's hundreds. And we're very proud of the fact that we get along with them, man. I got a couple that for whatever reason don't like us, treat us poorly, and we just try to avoid that situation. But more often than not, I have wonderful relationships with neighbors and share pictures. And I'm the first guy to text them and congratulate them if they kill a giant, and especially if it's a deer rafter. Like that's part of the dynamic, the social dynamic. We talk about the deer's dynamic. We as hunters have a social dynamic that sometimes I think people can get a little too possessive over a deer. Pictures make people go, my buck, or that is my deer that I'm hunting. Well, no, it's not. That's just a deer you have a picture of. There might be 10 other people that have the same thought that you are targeting that deer. So there's a social interaction among hunters that I think you really need to be the one to congratulate, right? Be happy for that guy if he succeeded. That's awesome that he had success, especially if he made a clean, ethical shot. That's what it's all about. So that overall dynamic and learning who your neighbors are and getting along with them is so very important in the whitetail world. You know, I mean, I think it's vital. And again, we have some that are just absolutely awful to us. They will cut our chains. They will throw trash on our farms. They will do everything they can to interfere with our hunt. And it's just, that's on them though. That's not on us, because we're not going to be the same in return. We're going to treat everybody with respect and help them when they need help, and try to be good neighbors to everybody.
Crazy. Yeah, I think that's an important piece. Obviously neighbors are a big impact on a lot of farms, and
we're in the first year of establishing those relationships, and we, it's not like they're doing anything intentionally, but like we've got dogs running on the farm, we've got people riding horses, we got people crossing fence lines, and so we've got some figuring out to do, some people to meet, some lines to draw, and hopefully they're good relationships that we can establish.
There's no substitution for a face-to-face conversation, and just communicate through it, and typically like a dog running through or a horse, those are oftentimes short-term problems. Like they're in and they're out and they're gone.
Yep.
But habitual, if somebody walking the same trail to their stand through the middle of your property every single day, now that's habitual and it has to be addressed. But many of those little instances are just little flare-ups. The other day, we had a herd of like 10 or 12 horses came through on a cell cam on one of our food plots, and we were like, what in the? We didn't even know there were that many horses in the camp. And I just still don't know where they came from, but they were gone. Wade went and looked for them, couldn't find them. And
Stallions.
We never find it. We wait. Never did find where they came from. It was like they were wild horses. It was like we were out west somewhere. It was crazy. There was a whole, like 10 or 12 of them. There were big ones and little ones and colored ones and black ones and red ones. And I asked all my neighbors, anybody know these? No, nor had they seen them. It was weird.
I'll bet you guys have gotten some wild pictures with as many cameras as you're running. That's crazy what happens. We've gotten pictures of like random goats and like people walking through the woods at night and just like the weirdest stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. There's no telling what all's been laid down on cell cams through the last, 10 years or 5 years since the advent of them. There's some funny pictures out there, no doubt.
I had a guy last year waddle right into a big community scrape on a field edge and drop his drawers and drop a load right in front of my camera. I call him.
Well, that makes me think a little bit too before you release.
I call him the serial shitter. I've met him since. I recognized him right away. I said, "That's the guy."
Any legitimate camera user knows now. Before you pop a squat, you take at least a couple looks around to see if there's a camera pointed at you.
Yeah, or jump in a deep ditch, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, we appreciate your time today. We know you got granddaughters in, Taylor's in, and you guys obviously got a pretty cool hunt to plan for tonight. But as always, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us. It's favorite time of year for everybody here.
Super appreciate your passion for it's awesome to talk to somebody like that's as fired up about it as we are. It's like, everybody is, they have varying levels of interest or of passion for deer hunting. So it's always fun to get you on and just like, dude, and you're older than we are too. And so it speaks to that even more. You're just as fired up about it as we are, if not more.
I'm obsessed and I can't wait to wake up every morning. I'm not joking. Like, I'm an impatient sleeper. I don't sleep well at night because I got so many things on my mind, and I can't wait to get going the next day. I'm 57 and Terry's 67, and I always look at him. He's a great example for me because he's 10 years older than me. He's still out there kicking butt, and I'm like, I've got to keep up with that guy. So he's a great example to live by.
Awesome.
That's awesome, man. Well, good luck to your mom tonight, and good luck to Taylor, and hopefully you guys put some down, send us pictures for sure.
Hey, I will, and good luck out there when you go to Illinois. You guys are the best. I really enjoyed visiting with you, and good luck to everybody that's listening. We sure appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us blabbing here today. Thank you all.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy.
Man, Jared, we probably have been using Muddy products for at least 10 years now.
It's a long time, dude.
It's been a long time. And I can remember when it was simply just safety harnesses and camera arms of all things. And, that's evolved to where you and I both have a bunch of Muddy box blinds as well.
I would say a bunch, but yeah, they've come a long way, and certainly the box blinds are huge. Shot that buck over your shoulder out of a Muddy box blind a couple of years ago. The harness and all of the other safety accessories really are a major component of what Muddy offers for me. We've had some injuries in the past. I've had some tree stand accidents. This is all back before we were using, frankly, harnesses, the lineman's belt while we're hanging stuff, and the safe lines. I have those in every single one of, our fixed tree stands now. And we really have made safety a priority. That's a big deal for us. And, Muddy has everything we need for that.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Muddy is anyone listening to the HUNTR Podcast can save 20% using the code HUNTR20. That's HUNTR20. Anything that you can see on the Muddy Outdoors store online, use that code, save yourself 20% for this hunting season.
Go Muddy. Good stuff.
November 6th. If you're listening to this on the first day it came out.
Nobody freak out.
Nobody freak out. Jeremy, don't freak out. Hopefully you've killed a buck by now. Stop, Nick. Don't freak out. Everybody stay cool. If you haven't tagged a buck yet.
Show me them boobies.
If you haven't tagged a buck yet, you'll be fine.
We've got some good days ahead, man.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Well, I mean, minus the, I think, opening day or two of Kentucky when I was down there, I've only used my recurve all year.
Yeah. Well, you also said you haven't hunted that much.
No, like 4 times.
Yeah.
So.
Are you missing good weather days? Like you sitting out?
Yeah.
Or?
I'm not trying to sit out. It's just work or travel. And like I missed the, that's Emily's 100-miler she just ran. Yeah. Those were two or three really good days. So sacrifice of a husband.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I miss those. Yesterday I really wanted to go out yesterday morning, but we had a photo shoot in Ohio. So I left at like 5 a.m. and then that big one was walking around my property pretty damn close to daylight.
So
yeah, I mean,
sounds like you need to set some ground rules.
Well, I mean, but to everybody listening, like we don't hunt for a living. Like what Mark say, he's been hunting every day. Yeah, I've hunted 4 times.
Mark hunts for a living.
Mark hunts for a living.
I think we all would have loved to do that.
I don't. So yeah, I'll but the next few, I mean, obviously we're gonna leave Monday.
Hunt to live. There's a difference.
Yeah, I'm gonna. The first 2.5, basically through Kansas, I'm going to be pretty MIA.
Hunting?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. No, that's just how it's going to be.
Well, we're going to work.
That's going to be how it's going to be, wife.
Well, listen, wife.
She asked me the other day, she's like, yeah. She's like, now that this like 100-miler's over, it's like crazy. I don't know what to do. I was like, listen, running season's over, bitch. It's time to hunt.
I'll be hunting. I don't know. I don't care what you do. I'll be hunting.
Don't hit me.
I told Margie we were going next week. She's like, "Oh, so I need to watch the dogs?" Or I was like, "Somebody does."
I don't know. I don't care. As long as they're fed, I don't care. Like, yeah. She's like, "When are you guys leaving?" I was like, "Monday." And then she's like, "Well, then I leave Friday." And I'm like, "Yep." And then like the next week I'll pretty much be gone. And then the next week I'll pretty much be gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so we got 3-4 days. What's today? Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday of work / spend time with the wife. Mm-hmm. And then Monday, we're going to Illinois.
Monday to Thursday, we'll be gone.
And then as soon as I get back, I'm going to regroup, and hopefully the weather's still good. I'm going to turn and burn right back to Ohio.
I'll probably hunt PA. Although she's gone, so I have the kids, which means I'll put them in a box blind with me.
Yeah.
Just sit there.
Put them in the round stand.
Shut your mouth.
Get over there.
I could probably leave them in the house if I hunt back behind the house.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
They're like 10,
What are they
right?
going to do, burn it down?
They're old enough.
Probably.
And then, so we'll see. That'll be like the 5th through the 10th. So I got a 5-day stretch there, and then we're back to Kansas.
We leave the 10th.
And then that's
when things get dicey for me, because Kentucky's in gun season at that point.
Okay.
So that's like one farm kind of like a little bit out of the mix.
I've got 3 buck tags right now.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas, Illinois, and Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio will be good. We've got a little bit of time there. Illinois' gun season starts when we go to Kansas.
We got to make a plan for Kansas.
When we go to Kansas, I think Illinois' gun season's right after that.
So we're only doing Illinois once?
Well, we'll have to wait till late season.
Initially, my thought there was,
Or gun tag.
like, if we were going to be there this week, which was our initial plan,
Mhm.
I was going to come back and do Ohio for a couple of days and then go back before Kansas. But we probably don't have enough time for that now.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, you could. You can do whatever you want. It's your farm.
Well, I know, but time-wise is
Yeah,
what I
you
mean.
probably don't.
Kind of
Yeah.
bummed that we're not going to have that. Well, there's a small chance that DSD decoy is supposed to, it says Saturday through Tuesday.
Mm.
So there's like a 25% chance
Mm-hmm.
it could be there on Saturday before we leave.
Be interesting.
I would absolutely go throw that up at the Cove.
Sure. That's probably the only way you're getting one in bow range there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll. This is where it gets a little. I mean, obviously we sound like spoiled brats, but like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are gonna be. So if you're listening to this, basically, the last 5 days prior to this coming out has been really, really good hunting. There's only so many states you can hunt during that time.
Mhm.
Like, so we're going to Illinois. That's our gamble for it, and then we're gonna kind of deal with what we come back to for Ohio or Pennsylvania.
Roll with it, man.
And then, Kansas, which
Just
is
be in the woods.
Kansas is a complete wild card. We have no idea.
I don't have a choice, so I'm embracing we're just, going in on public land. I'm going in.
That could be really bad for us, though.
Did we pick up French's or no?
Yeah.
You did.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
I paid for both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can figure that out.
But that could be really bad for us, though. You realize that?
Why?
There was a lot of people hunting public last year.
Oh, yeah. Well, if we had to, do you think all four, could you from where your dad's hunting, could you hunt right behind the house at French's?
Yeah, or over on the 80.
Okay. I'll have that DSD for sure by then.
Yeah, I could kill one on the 80 with that. I don't know what. Yeah. And then you could easily hunt two on Roberts.
Agreed.
Yeah, we can make it happen.
Do we bail
Dude,
on?
somebody should kill one in the first 2 days if the weather's right.
Weather's right.
We usually do.
Do we go back into public? Just walk? Just walk all day?
I mean, I'm up for it.
Just still
Take
hunt?
the old.
Should we buy crossbows
longbow or
and just walk around the whole time?
Should I just wear blue jeans and a headlamp?
It don't matter what you
Sure.
wear.
If I wear what Nick's wearing, I'd probably kill one.
Maybe I'll change it up. Maybe I'll just
Crossbow.
dump as much corn as I can. Maybe I'll pick up a crossbow. Maybe I'll just walk around.
Probably kill a giant.
I like to live it up. I like to mix it up. That doesn't jive with you. We should end this right now.
There's good chance. Oh, we didn't talk. I didn't bring it either. So I got a custom longbow.
No
It's
way.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah. A guy named Dan Tolke made it. I think Dan's from Colorado. 56-inch longbow, 48 pounds. It is awesome. Biggest thing for me, because I'm feeling really good about my recurve, which is what I've been hunting with. This longbow is probably like 2 pounds, maybe.
Whoa.
And it is so quiet. It's insane. But my effective range is basically 15 yards and in.
Where? How'd you get that thing?
I've
How'd
been
you
doing
find
some
this guy?
research for a while now, because I really have been. I've been loving shooting my recurve. And I just kind of read some new stuff on like longbows in terms of how quiet they were, lighter than a recurve.
Oh, so it's a longbow as opposed to a recurve.
Mm-hmm. So I've got my Hoyt Satori recurve, which is what I've been hunting with.
Yeah.
And then this is a Tolke longbow. It's called a Pika 56.
Cool.
It's awesome. So unlike so I shoot with a glove on that one. So I don't know. I'll be bringing trad to Illinois and Kansas. I'll probably have my compound though. I'll have my RX-7 too.
Okay.
So.
They just tried to call me.
Did they?
Yeah.
Denied.
All right. Well, hey, let's go hunting.
Yeah. So anyways, it's November. We appreciate Mark Drury coming on for episode 155.
55.
Jesus, Nick.
No bonus this week.
No
Would've been
bonus
last
this week,
we're-
but hopefully you listen to our live. I think that will stay up too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could keep it up.
So yeah, I mean, if you missed our live on Halloween night,
It was pretty creepy.
it was pretty
spooky.
creepy. Pretty creepy.
Creepy little peepee.
You can go back and check it out because it'll still be on YouTube. Probably a little Q&A with Jared. Probably sipping a little beer in the old Airbnb farmhouse in Illinois.
I think it'll be fielding comments,
Talking
see if anybody
strategies.
gets on in the first place. If not, it'll just be us getting drunk. So.
Getting drunk and eating Reese's PC cups for Halloween. Yeah, that'd be great.
We're gonna have to eat something that night.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Who needs food?
I always make the meat. So you make the veggies, bitch. I'll get the meat.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Hey, we need to establish a beer of choice for Illinois. Not ahead of time necessarily, but when the mood strikes, we'll have to figure that out.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So, all right. We appreciate everybody listening, and we'll see you next week.
Later.
Take me